Good morning, friends. It's Danielle with North Lawn Flower Farm. Today I'm going to be talking about why, when, and how to prune hydrangeas in the fall. But before we discuss those three topics, we need to determine whether or not we can prune a certain type of hydrangea. So Bigleaf, mountain, and Oakleaf hydrangeas bloom on old wood. That means that they've already set their flower buds for the next season this time of year. And if we were to prune that type of hydrangea back, we would be cutting off the bloom itself. However, we can prune smooth and panicle hydrangeas successfully in the fall or early winter because they don't set their flower buds until the following spring. So it's perfectly fine to prune them in late fall and early winter. Now let's talk about why you might want to prune your hydrangeas in the fall versus the spring. So for the last few years, I've been pruning almost all of my smooth and panicle hydrangeas in very late fall because of the kind of winter season that we get. Not only do we have heavy snow and ice loads, but we have really severe windstorms. So a lot of the times, and you can even see some of it has already happened here, I'll leave the blooms up to enjoy the look of them in the garden, but they're quickly destroyed by our winter windstorms. So one reason is because winter wind, snow load, or ice may actually damage the look of the hydrangea itself. Another reason is because of time. Sometimes in the spring we're so incredibly busy we just don't have the time to be pruning maybe the hundreds of hydrangeas that we have. So pruning in late fall just tackles one of those chores before all the work of spring begins. Another reason is just because of the look of an area. I'm choosing to prune every single hydrangea in my hydrangea room this year, but not the hydrangeas in the front of the house. And the reason is, right here, I feel like having these hydrangeas staying up at about 4.5 feet high blocks the view to my garden library. So I'm going to take those down so I can allow my eye to see the library nicely. However, in my front yard where there's a lot more protection from the wind and it's a beautiful display of a long stand of incredible hydrangeas, I'm going to leave those up. They look beautiful, they're protected from the wind, and I can just quickly tackle that stand of hydrangeas in early spring. And the last reason why you might choose to prune your hydrangea in late fall is because you prefer the look of a hydrangea cut back. And that's completely fine and totally up to your personal opinion. So now that we've talked about why we might want to prune a smooth or panicle hydrangea in late fall, let's talk about how to go about doing it. The main thing I want to do is wait until my plants have gone completely dormant. It's currently the second week of December in my South Central Pennsylvania garden, which is currently listed as a USDA hardiness zone 7A. The plants are dormant. They're not going to be pushing out leaves until spring, and this is a great time to go ahead and prune. I want to prune my hydrangeas, smooth and panicle hydrangeas, back by about 1/3, but don't worry about that too much. Honestly, you can't hurt these plants. I prune them all the way back to the ground. I've just deadheaded them before. I feel like I've done just about everything to a smooth and panicle hydrangea, and they always bounce back. What I'm going to do is take this particular incredible hydrangea back by about 1/3, and you can actually see right here where I cut it last fall. I'm going to cut it right above a set of leaves, and then I'm just going to continue to go around the plant, cutting right above those buds. So I like to start by just taking off all of the branches down to about the same level to start. Now that I have the general shape that I want this hydrangea to be, I'm going to go ahead and remove any really small and weak branches. I'm going to remove any dead branches, and I'm going to remove any crossing branches, leaving the stronger and thicker of the two branches behind. So right here you can see I have a nice strong stem, and then I have more of a spindly stem that's actually curved. I'm going to just take that stem that's curved and crossing this stronger stem all the way back to the ground. When it comes to pruning, whatever you leave behind is what you promote next year. So I want to promote strong, thick stems that can hold up these big flower heads. That's why I want to leave behind strong, thick stems versus lots of tiny, spindly stems. Now, say I were to just deadhead this plant and leave all of these spindly stems behind. That's completely fine and the plant will be fine, but I'll have a lot of weak stems with small flowers versus a lot of strong stems with big flowers. If you're wondering whether or not your hydrangea stem is dead, take a look at the inside. A hydrangea stem that's still alive is going to have a green ring around it. It's also going to appear to have more moisture within the stem itself, and it's going to be a little bit heavier. Versus this stem that's completely dead, you don't see that green ring. It's very light to the touch. It's also very brittle. I can break it in half just like that. Versus this one, you can really feel the moisture coming out, and you can see that green inside. So there we have it. It's all done and set for winter dormancy. And I also like to prune my hydrangeas down this time of the year because if you're planting a lot of bulbs, sometimes it can be hard to get the bulbs close to your shrubs. But by pruning them down this time of year, it allows you to plant lots of daffodils, tulips, alliums really close to your hydrangeas. And when you think about it, these hydrangeas, especially panicle hydrangeas, don't leaf out until after the daffodils are done blooming. I've pruned all of my large panicle hydrangeas in late fall this year. I started to do this a few years ago when I noticed that it was just causing me immense cleanup in the spring because once again, all of the bloom heads were either being destroyed by the snow, the ice, or the wind. And instead of having this beautiful shrub full of panicles to look at all winter, what I really had was a smush shrub and then flower heads to clean up all over my garden in early spring. So I pruned this one back also. Here's another panicle hydrangea. This is a lace cap panicle. I can prune this one back by a third now also. And then right here we have our classic Annabelle hydrangea, a smooth hydrangea, and I've started to prune this one back in the fall also. Now let's take a look at a few hydrangeas that we wouldn't want to prune in the late fall. Right here I have a bigleaf hydrangea. This plant already has the flower buds on it for next season. So if I were to cut down into the plant by about a third, I've completely eliminated all of my flowers. I will not kill the plant by doing this. I will just eliminate the flowers, especially if it's an older variety that is not a reblooming big leaf variety. So this kind of plant, I'm just gonna leave it until the spring, and in the spring, I'll just pop off the heads. But like I said, it's so windy in my area, normally these just all blow away on their own. Right here, I have a serrata hydrangea, and you might have noticed that the big leaf and serrata hydrangeas in my area keep their leaves a lot longer than the smooth and panicle hydrangeas. So this is another one. I don't want to do anything to it at all. If in the spring any blooms remain, I'm just going to deadhead just the bloom itself, but I'm never going to prune this type of hydrangea. And here we have an Oakleaf hydrangea. Once again, this plant has already set its flower buds for next year, so I do not want to prune into it at all. I might end up eliminating all of my flowers next year. The Oakleaf hydrangea is easier to identify because the leaves look like oak leaves. So if you see leaves like this that look like an oak leaf, and you're looking at a panicle style hydrangea, but it has this red crimson oak leaf, don't prune this one either. At the end of the day, it's really a matter of personal preference whether or not you prune your smooth and panicle hydrangeas in the late fall. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. It's really dependent on my schedule, whether or not I want to look at those hydrangeas over the winter season. But I've left the big leaf, the mountain, and the oak leaf hydrangeas intact. I won't prune on them ever. I'll only deadhead them in very early spring. For now, I want to wish you a wonderful day out there in your gardens, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye.